I'd like to introduce Toni from the US, who used to take LDN for multiple sclerosis. Thank you for joining me, Toni.
Sure.
Could you tell me when you first started to notice your MS symptoms?
I started noticing them in the summer of 2003.
Okay, and what symptoms were you experiencing at that time?
Well, my left leg started dragging when I would be out walking or hiking, and I fell on the trail.
Right. And how old were you then?
I was 52.
So how did MS impact on your life?
Well, shortly after that, I started to have numbness in my left hand and my left arm. And of course, I eventually contacted a neurologist, and about 3 months later, he did a spinal tap, and that's when he diagnosed the MS. So this was probably, I would say, September of 2003.
Mm-hmm.
That time, I started on Copaxone injections, and it didn't really impact my life immediately. It was just gradually more of a fatiguing and a weakening,
Mm-hmm.
mostly on my left side.
Right. And how did you hear about LDN?
I heard about it through a physician's assistant who worked at that time with my neurologist, and she suggested that I take it, and she wrote my original script for it, and that was either 2004 or 2005.
Mm-hmm. And when you first started, did you notice any introductory side effects?
I did not notice any side effects, nor did I notice any change in my condition.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept taking it at a low dosage, I think 3 or 3.5 milligrams for several years. I continued to take it anyway.
Right. And why did you stop taking it, Toni?
Well, a little later on, maybe 2009 or 2010, that person was no longer working with my neurologist, but I asked him if he would increase the dosage to 4.5 milligrams,
Mm-hmm.
only because I wasn't noticing any effect at all.
Mm-hmm.
So he did. So roughly from 2009 or 10 to the last several months, I was on 4.5 milligram. What made me interrupt that was I increased my spasticity, and I thought maybe it was something to do with the LDN, because I went from a fairly low dose to, I think, a much higher dose all by myself at my own provocation, and I do have increasing spasticity. So I thought, well, why don't I not do this for a while and see if the spasticity lessens? And that, and the fact that some of my other prescriptions that are compounded
Mm-hmm.
have increased in cost. So I decided to cut one thing out. And you know what? I'm not getting any worse, and the spasticity is not increasing. It's only been a couple months, maybe over the summer. So it's just sort of sitting on my shelf.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you don't feel that by stopping the LDN that you've deteriorated or anything has changed? You are more or less the same as you were before?
Well, there's a possibility that my progression has stopped. I have recently been doing some other therapies that are good for people. I've been to a naturopath, and I've been chelated for very heavy metal toxicity, and I don't know. I haven't noticed any increase in fatigue or any increase in ambulatory problems,
Mm-hmm.
and my husband thinks I have a little more energy. So it's hard to say what accounts for that.
No.
But it could have something to do with more like the heavy metal chelation,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe, you know, I don't know how LDN had figured into that.
Right. Would you consider going back on LDN at a later date?
You know, I would, and I'm going to see my neurologist in September, and I'm going to ask him. He won't know anything about LDN and dosage, but I'm going to ask him for a lesser dose, maybe 4.0, or maybe you could help me, maybe 3.5, and go on it again for another 6 months or so.
Okay. A lot of people who do get stiffness and spasms can't take 4.5. I mean, you might find that 3 is the better dose for you. It is all individual. But if you felt fine on 3, I mean, you could try 3.5 and see what that's like. It's a case of finding out, you know, what's the optimum dose for you. And nobody
what
can tell
I
you that.
felt, and I've reported this to other people of interest, is that even though I don't feel anything with taking the LDN, it may be working invisibly with some part of my system that only can help and can't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the spasticity issues, and that seems to be actually going away a tiny little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If LDN had anything to do with spasticity, then I definitely want to ask him for a lower dose.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Yeah.
What would you say to other people, Toni, who are contemplating trying LDN?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
Sorry. What would you say to other people who are thinking of trying LDN?
Oh, I would advise them to start at a low dose. To definitely try it because it's not very expensive, I don't think. And then, as I've read, gradually increase the dose until you know that you're at your maximum, and then stay there, which is not what I did. But, you know, I would advise, because I know that it has helped a certain percentage of people with MS, I would advise them to go on it. Definitely starting at 3.0 and then gradually increasing.
Well,
and I would ask them to make sure they work with their compounding pharmacy, that they must have immediate release fillers and not sustained release, and to make sure to take it at night before they go to bed. None of this was told to me. I had to gradually find this out through my own reading.
Well, a lot of people now do actually take it in the morning. They used to get sleep disturbance, and it still works very well taking it in the morning. And over here we always start on an ultra low dose of 1.5 and work up slowly, because some people find that 3 milligrams is too high for them.
Wow, that's very low.
Yeah, and the dropout rate isn't as high with people starting lower, especially the people that have bad stiffness and spasms.
Well, what are some of the what symptoms do they report if they start too high? What happens to them?
Right. I mean, in the case of stiffness and spasms, some people are so stiff and the spasms are so bad that they can't get out of bed if they start on a higher dose.
Okay.
It really does make that a lot worse. But as I say, by doing it slowly and a gradual introduction into your system, we found that most people can tolerate it a lot better. Well, thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, Toni. I really do appreciate it.
Well, I hope it helped, Linda. I appreciate your words of wisdom, and best of luck with everything, and hope to see some results sometime on the internet.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Right.